We're going to move on now to the mouse body, and what you're going to do is use a brown or a gray for the mouse. I've chosen a fairly dark gray so you can see. Double click on your gray and we are going to use the Create Fill Object tool. The reason why we're doing the outer body objects first is so we can put the holes in them for the inner body objects. So again, I'm just going to go through this fairly quickly. Start with the left ear at the right corner. Notice that your pull compensation is 0.2, your density is 4.5. I have set an angle of -65. Let's go through the parameters to see what we've done, and you will hold parameters for new objects. 0 to 4.5, everything is at the normal except I have chosen random 2 for the fill, and no underlay. Parameters, hold parameters for new objects, click on OK. Go on to the second ear, Control E, and there was my start point, so I didn't have a connection stitch. I moved my end point down there to avoid a connection stitch again. Angle -60. Then I did the face, and I went around the eyes on the face this time. I did this one a little bit differently. Start point was here, go around the face, come to the eye, around the eye, and all the way around. I put my end point right there with an angle of 80 degrees, still using random 2 for the fill. There's the body, and because I had my end point in the right position, my start point was right there. I moved my end point down there, -130, and this is all with the Create Fill Object tool. Control E, this was the second side of the body and the arm. Start point was right there, and I left my end point right there. Notice how I've gone in and out on the edges to give it a little more detail right there. And on this one, I added a carve right in here between the body and the arm. And my angle was -30 degrees. Because I could not start at the end point of the previous object, I added a connection stitch right across the top of the pants. So that's the second half of the body. Let's see where we are now. I came over to the right hand, and my start and end point were in the same position, and I made sure I indented nicely for the fingers with an angle of -149. When you have an odd numbered angle, usually that means you've used the P key. If it's 150, 155, usually you set it in parameters. Next, let's see where we are now. The foot, the right foot, started right there and ended right there. Angle was -147, everything else was the same. And this time I added a carving stitch right down there along the edge of the toe to give it detail. I did that because it was easier to add a carving stitch than to try and create a line through the toe. I tried it both ways and decided on the carving stitch. I also added a hole in it for that little pad right there. So my final object will look like this. There is the little carving stitch right down there, and there is the hole. I went on to the next foot, and again I started it right there, 31 degrees, and I couldn't have a connection stitch because of the hole in it. And I made a hole for the pad right there with the Create Fill Opening tool. The last object, and let's zoom down, not up, so you can see where it is the right hand. And I made sure that all those objects, or all the nodes I should say, covered the edges of the cheese. So his fingers covered the cheese, -55 degrees. And you can see now, if I turn this to red, how nicely the fingers cover over the edges of the cheese so there won't be any gaps. And I'll go back to gray. Now if we generate stitches on all those objects, you can see how nicely they all turned out. And as I say, this is a fairly dark gray, but I wanted you to see what I did. I also want you to see the body sections. Right click, edit. This is the left body section, and I need parameters, not edit. I added random broadening into the chest area. Side 2, I added 2.0 millimeters of random broadening. And on the other chest area, parameters, I added on side 2 into the chest 2.0 millimeters of random broadening. What that does is breaks up the stitches on that side and makes it look more lifelike and natural as they go in over the chest area. At this point, let's temporarily join all these objects together. We might split them later, but let's join them for now.